Well, it is the 22nd day of the 11th month of the year 2019, and they're coming back to you, of course, live from Garden City, to be specific, private schools fair. The big question is, what are the options in the education sector? We have public schools and we have private schools. Private schools, today they are offering you an option. And they're selling their niche. What is their selling point? What niche are they covering? That is the big discussion that we're going to be having this wonderful morning. Sit tight, tighten your seatbelt. We are about to begin, and we shall be discussing a myriad of issues, regulation when it comes to the private school sector. But apart from that, also the kind of products they are churning out in terms of the students they're sending out there into the country. Remember, education is very key, is very instrumental, is very pivotal when it comes to national development. How are we training, raising these children in regards to, of course, matters education? My name is Nokip Kimbo, and now we want to have a vivid, candid discussion with my panelists right here. I will introduce them. On my immediate left, we have Professor Michael Wainaina, who is an educationist and is also from Midas School for Boys. They train children on film. I had to go to campus to study film. Then they're starting at quite a young age. Very impressive. Next to him, we have Mrs. Manraj Palan, who's the director of Laser Hill Academy. Laser on point there. Then next to her, we have Mr. Hezron Onyango, who is the deputy head teacher, upper primary at McKinney School. Deputy head teacher, upper primary, McKinney School. And lastly, we have Mr. Peter Masharia at the far end, who is the principal of St. Mary's School. And our discussion begins right now. Thank you very much, gentlemen and lady, for making time for us this morning. Let's start with the status quo. Professor Wainaina, private school. We know we have public and we have private school. Why private school? What niche? How important is it in the education ecosystem in the country?
That's a good question, and I think many of us are in this space for different reasons. I think I would like to answer that question from the point of view of why are we at Midas Boys, why are we in that space? Why are we in the private schools space? And the way we see ourselves, and personally as an educationist, the way I see the role of private schools or private education is how are you redefining that space? Because you cannot come into a space to provide same old. And one of the big questions that we had to ask ourselves at the inception of Midas is, what is going to be different about us? What does the modern child need? What does the future demand? And what kind of an institution do we need to create now in order to provide the skills for the modern child to survive in that future? And that is the basis upon which Midas is conceptualized. I've always told my people that if we are not different, then we shouldn't be doing it at all, because everybody else is doing the same old thing. So that we define our niche as being that environment that provides the skills and systems for a modern child to thrive in a future world. And 21st century learning skills are known. If you peruse your literature, you will find those 21st century learning skills. The question is, are we creating the environments and systems to impart those 21st century skills? And if there is a niche for Midas, that is what we are doing, providing environments and systems for 21st century learning.
Wow, that is very detailed. Mrs. Palan,
Yes.
When you speak about Laser Hill Academy, you've been part of the system education sector for quite a while, quite a notable name. And I'm pretty sure you've had to evolve over time. what Professor is talking about, the changes in the 21st century. If you may outline for us, what are some of these changes that you have noted as a player from initially to currently where we stand and the future, even where we are heading?
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure being here. I completely agree with what Professor Vainana is saying. You need to have a school which is geared towards the 21st century skills. And we are currently going through what is called the 4.0 industrial revolution, which is technology-based, which is AI-based. You need maths, science, engineering, and, well, you need your STEM subjects. But in addition to that, you need what is called the A. So you, instead of STEM, you say STEAM. You need the arts, because you need a child to be evolved in critical thinking, in analytical thinking, in problem solving. A couple of years ago, about 20 to 30 years ago, the world demanded, because they were going through the Industrial Revolution, the world demanded a very automated thought process. Tomorrow's world is going to demand a student who is going to compete with artificial intelligence. So you need to sharpen the saw, as they say. You need to ensure the brain is working faster than the artificial intelligence. And the 21st century skills, the higher order thinking skills, is what is needed.
Yes.
So Laser Hill has evolved itself over time. And we started off as an international school. Now we are a hybrid. We offer both 844 and the international curriculum. But our emphasis is entirely on developing the higher order thinking skills.
Yes, definitely. And that is quite impressive. STEAM, from STEM to STEAM.
Yes.
We don't forget the air for the art.
You can't. In the 21st century, you cannot forget the air.
Definitely. Mr. Onyango, McKinney School, you do 844 system. Yes?
Yes, exactly.
And currently the big discussion, of course, being fronted by the Minister of Education is the curriculum-based, competence-based curriculum, rather. That is the CBC. And they're saying that CBC will cater for this art and this STEM and make sure that we are developing our children with the changing times in the 21st century.
Yes.
From your experience, is that going to happen? Is it happening?
Thank you. Competency-based curriculum is one of the best things that has actually happened in this country. The current system we are having, it started because at that time when 844 was initiated, Kenya was facing a lot of other challenges, one of them being literacy. And therefore, we wanted to expand the number of literate people who can read, write, and do arithmetic. Now, things have changed, just like Professor had said, and my colleague here. Now, the world has actually changed. Now, the world needs innovators. The world needs entrepreneurs. The world needs people who are digitally literate so that they can meet the ever-changing demands in the market and in the world. And therefore, CBC is there to meet all those changes. Again, if you look at the curriculum design and interpret it well, apart from the competencies, we have values. As a country, you've realized that when you watch news, what you get, most of the 80% of the content are negative content, either murder, corruption, theft, and so on. It means that the country needs a curriculum that can be able to raise such issues. I'll tell you what have we done at McKinney School, that I think we are the best when it comes to the CBC, competency-based curriculum, and how we have actually stationed ourselves to make sure that it's fully implemented to the letter, so that these competencies can be able to be achieved perfectly well. We're not saying that 844 was bad, or it's bad. It was a good curriculum. It was meeting the needs of the country by then. But currently, things have changed, just like I said, that now the world is different, how we approach things. Now, let me ask you this. In 844, we were learning a lot of things like the parts of an insect.
Yes.
The head, thorax, abdomen. Does it apply to you right now? It doesn't. When other countries were busy learning things that were able to move them ahead, competency-based curriculum is able to make this. Look at people who are in skills, skill-based. They're doing that, and talent-based. They're paid more. even the career has changed.
Yes.
We are no longer talking about employees. We are creating entrepreneurs.
Yeah,
Yes.
that is quite detailed. It's quite obvious from what we've mentioned is that the times have changed, and now the education system also needs to change. Mr. Peter Masharia, St. Mary's, when we talk about, national issues, yeah, St. Mary's stands out there as one of the schools that has produced notable alumni. And oftentimes we correlate the product, that is the students who are coming out of the schools that we run, yeah, and the impact that they're going to have in the society. Tell me, from your experience, is it an intentional process that starts from when that child comes to school, so that we end up having, for example, a president, a cabinet minister, or a DJ who is notable in the field?
Yeah, thank you. It is true that it is an intention. Since the inception of St. Mary's School back in 1939, the intention was to create a holistic student and to offer holistic education all through. And that is why our school is value-based, because it is based on church ethos of the Catholic Church. And right from 1939, St. Mary's has been offering holistic education all through up to the present date. Even as much as we embrace CBC, it has been there. And we have been nurturing talents of all the students that go through us. We do not say that education takes the back seat. But the fact is, when we identify a student with a talent, then we help that student be able to nurture that talent and achieve the dreams that he wishes to achieve. So this is what we have been doing. We have been in academics, but we have paid a lot of emphasis in co-curricular activities. That wherever we see a student's talent, we are able to nurture it, we are able to tap it, and we are able to help that child grow into that particular kind of talent. We also encourage our students to be very confident, and we teach them about leadership. And that is why I'm saying it is intended. St. Mary's has produced leaders, and it will continue, also producing leaders, because our curriculum is holistic, and
yes,
we are able to nurture every single talent
definitely
that every one of our child has.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now, we are in the education sector. You are seeing a niche that you're filling. My question is, there is the element of standardization. Any country wants to have some sort of standardized system. When it comes to, for example, education, we are seeing across, equality of some sort, or, a level of performance and excellence to some extent. Professor Inaina, is this something that we're going to achieve, this disparity between the private schools and the public schools in terms of output? Is it getting wider as time goes by, or is there hope that we'll have some sort of standardized and, levels that cuts across?
I have a problem with the concept of standardization because, and I'll give you the answer from the point of view of Midas School and how we think about how the next generation should learn. When we talk about modern education, what is the basic characteristics? There are many tenets to modern education, or to what we call modern pedagogy. But what is the basic one? What is the pillar of modern pedagogy? Learner-based collaborative learning that is aided by ICT. That would be a basic summary of what modern pedagogy is all about, at least what we do at Midas. Now, the challenge with standardization is this. How do you standardize one child against the other child against the other child? If we are saying we are learner-centered, then we are not driven by the need to standardize. We are driven by the need to make sure that every child is nurtured to become the best that they could be. That best that they could be cannot be measured against another child, and it cannot be standardized. And when we say at Midas we are providing an environment for modern learning, we are providing an environment that ensures that the individual child unfolds naturally. And when you approach education that way, the question of standardization doesn't arise. The question that arises is, are you providing the environment and the systems that will allow the individual child to rise to their utmost and to their optimal potential? Our concern at Midas is that this talk about standardization as if school is a factory process where you I've had some words being used even in this panel, churning out graduates. We don't churn out graduates. Students, our children are individuals with individual abilities, with individual potential, and the paths that they are going to take will surprise even us, the educators. Our role is not to standardize. Our role is to provide an environment and to provide systems that allow kids, our kids, to grow into the best that they can be and survive in a world that is changing very fast and be productive members of a modern society. And that is the most important commitment that we have put out at Midas School.
Definitely. So it is student-based, student-driven. And speaking of student-driven, Ms. Palan, what do we need to do? What are some of these structures? Of course, it's mentioned ICT being at the forefront, but that is how people learn these days. It is the new way. From your experience being a player in the sector, what structures have you put to make sure that there is a focus on that particular student and developing that individually in a group of students?
I think in a good school, the most important factor is the teacher. So we have teachers who think their role is to go and lecture. And we have teachers who think that their role is to empower and enable the learner to study. So facilitate learning. That's the difference. In a learner-based system, you have teachers who facilitate, who hold the hand and help the child move forward in their own innovative learning capacity. So this is where the CBC comes in. They want you to learn how to build a structure. They're not teaching you how to build a structure. They want you to take the material around you and build the structure. So you learn for yourself. It's learner-based, open channels, allowing the student to communicate freely, enabling the child open access to learning opportunities. That is what we believe to be the best way forward.
All right.
Yeah.
So it's making sure you assess your environment,
Yes.
and you look what you have around you and what you can have, and focus on that, nurture that, bring that into this child's life to develop something inside them.
Listen to the child.
Listen to the child.
Listen to the child.
Mm-hmm.
The Industrial Revolution taught us not to listen. We came from a system which was very strict in its discipline attitude. So you obeyed the teacher. Yes, sir. No, sir. You don't question the teacher. But in today's environment, and I'm sure in most of the good schools around, the student is listened to. The student has a capacity to stand up and argue and discuss and disagree with the teacher.
Definitely. Mr. Ezron,
Yes.
Mr. Nyango.
Yes.
Numbers, because numbers is very key in the country. Actually, for example, the recently released results, people know that we have 1 million plus children joining high school. It's good for planning. It's very key. But in terms of focusing on individuals, especially just being a general player in the field, I know you're in the private sector, private school sector, but generally, even when you look at the public sector, you find that, children are too many, resources are too little, there is some sort of imbalance. Is it a dream to achieve an overall, system, academic system in the country where we shall nurture children individually?
Now, talking to 100% transition, which is a very wonderful policy developed by the Ministry of Education. What is important in education is the infrastructure and the human capital, where we have the teacher-pupil ratio. And that's where I think McKinney beats the rest in the game. Because if you visit our institution, we are over 3,000 learners. And I want to explain that so that you see how the government can achieve 100% transition and still get quality. In McKinney, with these over 3,000 learners, we've divided the school into manageable sections, where the preschool are in their separate compounds with the fully equipped infrastructure, with the smaller classes that do not exceed 25. Same to middle school and junior school, and also primary school, upper primary school, and senior second school, high school. What the government need to do right now is to come and benchmark with the schools that have been in this game for long. Like McKinney, we have been there for over 40 years with excellent results, with the quality skills produced. If you come there, you realize that even the academy, we have a separate academy, McKinney Sports Academy. We have a maker space. We have robotics there to develop almost everyone. Now, if infrastructure is there and the human capital is there, it's quite okay. But if we lack infrastructure and the human capital is down, we will have 100% transition to second school without quality. And there we'll still have same problems the country is facing.
Yes.
Yes.
So 100% transition, it has to be done, but in a quality manner. Mr. Macharia, speaking of quality, we saw when the government announced the results saying we have 1 million+ students joining high school, this transition to be able to, have quality education for them generally, overall, as a country, is that we're giving 8 billion towards infrastructure development. And to many, it seems like it is reactionary. Now we see over 1 million students joining, so we need to give 8 billion shillings for that. My question is about investment in education and this infrastructure. How can we best achieve this?
Thank you. I think the government should come in and do much more than we have currently. Because we talk about 100% transition, like he says. But when you look at it, nothing is happening on the ground. And if we are going to achieve quality education through CBC, it is true infrastructure should be done. I look at a situation where we have our primary schools and these kids are supposed to transit into, junior secondary and even senior secondary. And even so far, we have not seen anything possibly happen. And we are wondering, are we going to offer quality in the situation and in the circumstances that we are in now? We are lucky in schools like St. Mary's and most of the private schools, I believe, we have the structures already. And we can be able to transit our students from, lower primary, we can transit them from junior school to even, senior secondary school and even higher without any problem of infrastructure. So the government needs to come in and put in much more. All the schools need that kind of infrastructure expansion if we are going to achieve 100% transition and quality education.
Definitely. Professor Wainaina, you seem to have quite a different opinion in terms of, apologies for that, in terms of determining that for you. I can see that from the reaction. But in terms of involving the government, in solving the situation of infrastructure crisis that we face in majority of our schools, not private, public schools. Should we aim more on privatization or on partnerships in order to develop some of these structures that we need in order to nurture these students individually?
there is definitely a complementary role between government and the private sector. That does not just apply to education; it applies in all sectors. That that complementarity, that partnership, is desirable. But like I said in the beginning, the people who come into the private education space must come into the private education space because they have a different value proposition. The government will deal with issues of access, will deal with issues of transition in public schools, will deal with issues of infrastructure. But if you're coming in as a private player, why are you coming in? What is the need that you're coming in to feel that is complementing or partnering what the government is doing? And like I told you, for us at Midas, transformation and innovation of education to make it modern for the modern child is our greatest concern. That the modern child cannot learn the way I learned in long before you were born. The world has changed a million times over. If I go back to the school where I was that many years ago, nothing much has changed. It still remained pretty much the same, doing pretty much the same things the same way. The modern child who is a digital native, we call them digital natives, the modern child who requires an environment that nurtures their self-expression, that nurtures their creativity, that nurtures their communicative ability, needs a school, needs an environment that is going to help him nurture those 21st century skills. That's the environment that we provide at Midas School. If you look at these posters behind us, there are many of them. I think most of them would be visible to the viewer. The only poster that tells you we are different and that these are the 21st century skills that we are giving your child is a Midas one. And you will not see any other person here talking about 21st century skills. And I told you, they are known. If you Google 21st century skills, you'll find them. The question is, are we providing systems and environments that are allowing our children to imbibe, to practice, and to benefit and to be productive from these 21st century skills? And they're here. If I will read them for you, we promote 21st century learning skills to produce creators and innovators, critical thinkers and problem solvers, self-directed independent learners, digitally literate communicators, learners and collaborators, film, TV, radio, and media practitioners. So that when people are talking about competency-based curriculum, competency-based curriculum is based on competency-based learning, okay? So even before we start debating the pros and cons of competency-based curriculum, is your learning institution, is your school providing competency-based learning? Are you giving your learners skills and abilities that will make them more than consumers of knowledge, but people who have productive skills, people who can be productive in society? And that is why at Midas, in order to provide competency-based learning, we have, like you were saying, we have film studies, we have TV and radio production, we have music production. Kids, modern kids, want to be able to do these things early, so that if, for example, you are interested in a career in media and production, you don't have to wait until you finish high school and go to college so that you can do your media and production. You come to Midas, and right from Form 1, you can start your media and production career. We have a full-fledged entrepreneurial program, and it's not an entrepreneurial program where we teach students entrepreneurship. No. You come, if you're a businessman or if you're an entrepreneur, you come with a business idea, you pitch the business idea, you tell us how you're going to raise the capital,
Yes.
you tell us who your customers are going to be,
Definitely.
you tell us what your margins are going to be.
Yes.
We are creating an entrepreneur, competency-based learning.
Yes.
Competency-based curriculum itatupata while we are already on the road to competency-based learning.
Oh, that is quite interesting. Competence-based curriculum, Ms. Palin, is based on competence-based learning.
Yes.
And from the talk of it, it seems to be quite, you have to invest in it. You have to be intentional around it, if I may put it so. He's mentioned, he's read the poster 21st Century Learning Skills, and he's even pointed out that nobody's talking about that. But in terms of you as a player, how key are these 21st Century Learning Skills? Are you involved in them? And is there hope overally, because I'm thinking beyond there. Of course, there is the niche aspect of it, but I'm thinking about the influence over from private schools, even to public schools, to be able to embody some of these things, so that when I go to my primary school, I'm able to see children doing full studies, something that I didn't get an opportunity to do while then. Is it possible?
See, for me, competence-based learning is all about driving what is the 21st century skills. Now, competency-based does not mean that you do not teach mathematics. It does not mean you do not teach the traditional subjects in the class. It's just the way you teach them, the methodology of teaching them, and the expectation from the student that is different. So 844 is a competency-based curriculum. There's nothing wrong with the 844 curriculum. It's the way we taught the curriculum. It's the expectation of the examination that actually changed the goals initially. I did KCP in Kenya from the local system, in a local school. I went to Kisii Primary School, and I can say that we were in a competency-based program. The Kenyan system, before the 844 derailed the original system, was competency-based. You identify the needs, the nurture the talents, and allow the child to develop his thinking process. That is what competency-based program is. It is not stopping the traditional subjects. So you must teach mathematics. I mean, research has shown that today the employer wants mathematical skills. He wants technological skills. He wants the child to be able to do critical thinking and problem solving. So you don't get away from the traditional subjects, but you just teach them in a different way. You just have a different expectation from the student. We need to stop driving the 400 marks and the A+. We need to stop driving that. I'm not saying that it's not important for students to do well. It's extremely important for students to do well and work hard. But we need to stop underrating those who have got less than 200 points.
Yes.
I met a parent yesterday who told me that they have children who have locked themselves up in the room because they have got less than 200 points. They are considering themselves lesser human beings, simply because this country is driven and obsessed by the 400 points. We need to change that.
Definitely. And the change is starting from the private sector schools. Hopefully it flows over. But over to you, Mr. Onyango.
Yes.
You're quite passionate about the CBC, the curriculum. Professor just said, you know, the curriculum will find us ahead. We have to start with the learning itself. Yeah? And when it comes to learning itself, and in the 844 system, she's mentioned that we don't have to do away with the traditional. Of course, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, if my child is interested in DJing, let him just go scratch up and that's it. But there's the element of, you know, those complementary nature. He needs to do his math when it comes to earnings and whatnot. So this competence-based learning to be achieved from your end, before even we talk about curriculum, how is that malleable? How is it possible?
First thing is attitude. The country should change the attitude and have a positive attitude towards the new curriculum. Professor and my colleague here, they have talked about the mode of learning. The 844, how was learning taking place? It was too traditional, where a teacher was the only source of information. One where he is the one to stand in front and give out information. But then we are saying there's this child-centered learning. Well, how is learning supposed now to take place in this situation? People learn or acquire information differently. Others are visual active. They'll only acquire that information if they see. Some are active learners. They have to touch, interact with it, and then they learn. So varieties of learning, as enshrined in the CBC, are the ones that that are bringing out the difference in the old system of learning and the new method of learning. Some schools like McKinney, just like Professor and my colleague said, that there are certain schools that already had competency-based learning even before it came. As a school, when you're starting, what's your vision? Are they only 400 marks you are looking for, or you want to develop a holistic individual? In Makini, we develop a holistic individual, a whole human being, so that we can curb issues of discipline. Let children be children in the environment they're supposed to be, and they learn at their pace, and again, at the position they can be able to learn. Competency-based curriculum can succeed only if we change, the country changes the attitude. And also each and every private school and public school develop infrastructures that are able to support learning. Yes. When we talk about developing infrastructures, it doesn't mean that we have to spend a lot of billions to bring in the facilities. We use the available materials to their disposal within the environment to make sure that it's actualized. Yes. Thank you.
All right. We've spoken about extensively when it comes to the, competence-based learning and competence-based curriculum from within the system. Now, let's look without, in terms of the role of the parent. Mr. Macharia, I believe you are a parent. What is the role of the parent? Because some of this pressure is coming from the parents, sincerely. Traditional parents are like, you get 400, I'm very proud of you, my son. Yeah, you've made me proud. They'll post on Twitter. I haven't seen anyone post on Twitter their child has gotten 250 marks. Yeah, from a particular age gap. We say the traditional parents. But what is the role of parents in terms of changing attitude, as Mr. Onyango has said, in terms of approach?
Thank you. I think the parents has a very great role to play. And in St. Mary's, we engage them, and we are able to also sometimes train them even on the role of parenting. Let me say our school is a little bit different in structure than the way we do things. And if you look at what we have displayed there, I think I would like to take just 1 minute, and possibly be able to explain the motto that drives us. There is bonitas, which is a Latin word that means God's goodness. There is disciplina, which is discipline. And there is scientia, which is knowledge. This is the motto that has guided St. Mary's throughout the years ever since its establishment back in 1939. The parents are aware of the role that they are supposed to play in their children. And we engage them most constantly to let them know that they have a duty also to be able to guide their children in those talents that they have and the talents that we people would also like to nurture in them. We train them to realize that every child has different abilities. And therefore, they should not come in and condemn a child just because the child has gotten 240 marks. It is not the marks that we look for, but we look at a holistic child. That is why we offer that value-based education, where we should seek God's guidance and seek those values that will guide us in life, as we also are disciplined and we seek knowledge. We are able to seek knowledge. And when we seek knowledge and we identify a skill that we need to nurture in a child, we definitely go for that, and we allow the parent also to give space for the same to happen.
Definitely. Professor, I'm thinking about my mother. You as a player in the sector, yeah? And I'm like, Mom, that's cool. They offer DJing or they offer film, and this is what I'm passionate about. And she's of the mind of, soma kwanza, then iyo mambo utapatana baadaye. Secure your future, as they call it. What are the intentional process that you're taking? Giving example, for example, from Midas, what you guys are doing. Intentional process of changing the mindset of the parent. Because they're the parents who bring their children to these schools. Is there an intentional process to change this mindset?
Like I told you from the beginning, a private school must have a reason to exist that is different from what is already there. And when at Midas, when we say we are different and we offer more, we really are different. And have we come across challenges of the type you're talking about, where we are so new, we are so modern, we are so different that a certain category of parents feels uncomfortable about us. Yes, it has happened. Last year, if I give you an example, a parent insisted that they wanted to talk to me. And I said, fine, I can talk, because they said they had very important feedback to give me about what we are doing at Midas. So when I went, she said, Prof, you're doing a good job here. I think this is a good place. But Prof, I think you're too modern. You're too new. You're too different. You're too futuristic. Termushen kidogo. Just try and be like everybody else a little bit so that we can feel comfortable to bring our children here. And I told her, thank you very much first, because of affirming what we have always said that we are. If she had called me and told me that you people claim to be modern and to be new and to be different, and I haven't seen any of that, that would have been a big problem for me. Now she's saying, you are actually what you say you are. It's only that I feel it is a little bit too much. And I remember telling her, we are preparing the next generation for the world in which they will live in, not the world in which I live in, and not the world in which you live in. So I can understand if you feel uncomfortable about that world and what we are doing about it today to prepare your child to get there. But we are not different. We are not modern by default. We are decidedly modern, and we are decidedly different. And we do appreciate that there are some people, either parents, either kids, either our students or our teachers, who will feel uncomfortable with being in a modern, dynamic learning environment that deals with these 21st century skills. And I told her, if that is where you are at, we understand. Unfortunately, you have options. We don't have options about being modern. We don't have options about being new. We don't have options about preparing the next generation for the future that is yet to come. That is our mission. That is our vision. That's our crusade, actually. So if you feel a little bit uncomfortable about this environment, you have options. We don't.
It's about options. And, you know, at the end of the day, the parent has to decide what they want for their child. Ms. Palan, let's talk about discipline, which is quite an emotive issue when it comes to this age and time, the age of social media. Was it months ago we saw on social media a very young boy ranting so much, yeah? And, you know, everyone was throwing jabs left, right, and center. They're saying the parenting was not right. What is the school doing? You know, there was a lot of context in that video. I'm pretty sure you watched it. But in terms of instilling discipline, is that also, of course, the children are evolving with time. Should our approach when it comes to discipline also evolve and change with the times that we are in right now?
Without the doubt, kiboko is out now. You cannot use the cane anymore, and that's a fact. As far as I'm concerned, it's my fundamental opinion and view that a school is a reflection of the society. So what is happening in the society is usually mirrored into the school. If our children are abusive in school, you can be rest assured that they have been exposed to a social environment at home, wherever, where they have learned that abuse, maybe in the school as well. So a school disciplinary standards is a direct reflection of what is taking place in the society. As a society, we are becoming intolerant. As a society, we are moving towards excessive competition. We are moving towards what I remember my literature professor calling man-eat-man society. We are heading in that direction, and that is being reflected in a school environment. All told and said, I think that the traditional values, the value system never changes. The 21st century skills, I'm sure Professor Vanaina will tell you, does not mean that the value system changes. Truth remains truth. Honesty remains honesty. Integrity remains integrity. Empathy remains empathy. The true Christian values, which must be the pillar stone of every school in Kenya, must be the cornerstone of the disciplinary standards. You will not have a problem with discipline if you engage your students. It is only when you refuse to listen to them and when you put them into boxes, into little square boxes, you doing this, you doing this, and not listening to what they have to say, that you will have that kind of an issue.
Yes. So discipline comes again, it falls back to focus on the individual student, because you are able to understand what they're going through personally and able to address that.
Yes.
So it's not, the crowd approach, which we've experienced in our learning days. When I was in primary school, noisemakers, if the teacher hears from one class, all of you are going to get a beating. You've said the Ken is out right now. And some traditional people tend to differ from that. Mr. Onyango, they're saying, in fact, you've quoted Christian values, and they say, without a Ken, there's a Bible verse going towards that direction, which is normally quite controversial in terms of, you have to discipline a child for him to change the ways. But speaking of, again, extracurricular activities, because you say you're big on that, yeah? The extracurricular activities I knew were PE, yeah? Is it physical education?
Yes.
And you're given 2 lessons, maybe in a week. The rest of the times you are inside, yeah? How are these changing? And tell me about the intentional process, how important these extracurricular activities are in the development of a child.
Thank you very much. I'll give you this scenario in a McKinney context. Co-curricular activity is not all about PE. It's wider than that. What we have done in McKinney, first of all, is to develop infrastructure that will be able to support co-curricular activities. We have music studio, where any child with a passion of music goes and is trained. We have a fully fledged sports academy. It's called McKinney Sports Academy. Swimming with the state-of-art swimming pools. We have football pitch, modern one. We have basketball pitch, and many more that I cannot be able to mention here. What do? We do not only make dull children, at the end creating zombies, whose work is just to sit down from morning to evening. We have timetabled these programs. Like we know very well, after normal lesson from 3:30, every single day is games. McKinney has employed professionals on those sides. If they are coaches, they are there to do the job. So they go there and they are trained and they meet the coaches who train them in different fields. Same happens to music, drama, and so on. For us as an institution, we believe it's not all about 400. And let me tell you, when you engage a child who is very active in outdoor activity, remember you will have a child whose mind is very open and well developed, and in curricular activities will be able to perform. But when you have a closed individual, and that's where it comes in even discipline. When you create an environment where it's so strict, then the reaction is what we call indiscipline. Because the child wants to be a child. So at McKinney, we have realized, and that's why we have survived for 40 years with excellent results. There's no year the result will be released, and you hear McKinney hasn't done well for 40 years. The reason is, it's not all about academics, because we know very well that a mind that is well exercised, a body that is well exercised and fit, will be able to sit and give you what you want.
Definitely.
Including discipline.
Yes.
That
is quite interesting. So, Mr. Macharia, the cost of education. Professor is very unapologetic in terms of go where you want, yeah, where you can afford, and what you see the importance when it comes to your child, what you want for your child. And we have different starters when it comes to private education. Yeah, we have very affordable ones, which again there is the element of, are they offering quality? The question is quality. Then there is another tier, and there is another tier. In terms of private education affordability, what do you have to say? Is it based on what you can afford you as an individual?
Thank you. I think it simply depends on individual institutions and what they seek to achieve. And I believe I agree with Professor what he's talking about, in Midas School. They have their own targets. They know what they want to achieve. They know what to train their children to. But in a school like St. Mary's, again, it's totally different from the approach that he takes. Our school belongs to the Archdiocese of Nairobi. It is a church school. It is a value-based institution. And mostly in our school, we do not charge so much because we believe in evangelization. Education is a way of evangelization. So we are not out for profit or anything, but we are out to bring in that child and give him holistic education so that he can be of great value to the society, so that he can also move out and be able to evangelize. We put a lot of emphasis on our pastoral programs. And that is why there is no difference between the St. Mary's as a school and St. Mary's as a parish, St. Austin Parish. We share the same compound. And we nurture all those values the Catholic way, as much as we also are able to accommodate any other believer in any other denomination.
So it is value-based.
So ours is value-based, and therefore we don't seek to get profit out of it. We seek to evangelize.
Definitely. Professor, regulation, when it comes to, you are against standardization because it has to be student-centered. Regulating the private sector when it comes to education, how is it done? Is it being done the right way currently as we speak in the country?
Let me say that we are the regulated. So the people who should talk about that question are the regulators, because we are the regulated, and we may not be able to speak in terms of the regulator. But your question is relevant to the extent. To what extent has a school, you've heard him talk about St. Mary's, and you've heard him say that their objective is to evangelize. So part of the objective is to evangelize. So you want to find out how have they transformed the environment within the school in order to be able to achieve what they want to achieve. And I would then look at regulation that way, that have we transformed the environment in our school in order to deliver that which we claim to deliver. And I'll give you 3 examples from Midas Boys High School. How we have transformed the environment in order to make sure that we are delivering the 21st century skills that we claim that we are delivering. I'll give you 3 examples. Number 1, at Midas, we don't have bells. There is no bell in school. And when students and parents come and they hear that, they are shocked. They have always associated a school with a bell.
Yes.
And some of them cannot even understand how you can operate a school without a bell. But we have said that we are a self-directed, self-regulated environment. We want a critical thinker. We want a self-directed student. So how are you going to produce a self-directed student in an environment where their every action is controlled by a bell? That is not going to happen. So that for us, it is not possible for us to produce what we want to produce in terms of a 21st century learner and have bells at the same time. So at Midas, you will not find bells. Number 2, when you're talking about learner-centered approach, the traditional classroom architecture is created for teacher-centered learning. You remember your school, when you were in school, you sit in rows. like this, and the teacher is in the front, so everybody is facing the teacher, because the teacher is the owner of the information, and the teacher is the center of the learning process in what we call traditional pedagogy. Now, if we want a learner-centered environment at Midas, what do we do about that situation? Because the very classroom architecture is created for teacher-centered learning in traditional pedagogy. So what have we done? We have transformed the classroom architecture. If you come to the Midas Classroom is a conferencing sitting, so that the teacher becomes, like she said, a facilitator, a co-investigator, and the students are collaborators in what we call a pentagon. We have a pentagon sitting, what we call the pentagonal collaborative learning unit, where 5 students will sit together, and that's a learning group. So that the student is, 1, the center of the learning process, 2, the setting is collaborative. It is not teacher-centered. Number 3, how have we transformed the environment? We have computers in the classroom, and we encourage our children to come with their laptops and with their tablets that they leave at home. Today, our children have laptops, they have tablets. When schools open, they close them, they lock them, they come to school. And one wonders, if we are training these kids for the 21st century, how can a kid leave the laptop and the tablet at home and come to school? It's like when we were in school, tulikuwa tunaambiwa tukuje na jembe. I don't know whether you are the jembe generation yourself. You look pretty modern. We were being told to come with jembe. We were being told to come with the slasher, panga. Yes. Okay. Mm-hmm. In the 21st century, kids are supposed to come with laptops and tablets because the world in which they are living in today, my friend, yes. You are banking on your phone, isn't it?
Yes.
You are reading your news on the phone, isn't it? You're getting your information on the phone, isn't it?
Yes.
Then your child is supposed to leave it at home and come and learn, and you're wondering, come and learn what? For which world? How are they going to learn it? So for us, ICT is not just a word.
Yes.
It's not just a computer lab somewhere where you take your children to go there and learn Word and learn PowerPoint presentation. ICT is an integral part of the learning process. Unfortunately, yes. What the traditional guys will tell you is that these kids will misuse these things, these kids will, of course they will. If children come into an environment that has not institutionalized ICT, they will find their own ways of using the gadgets.
Definitely.
But when they come in an environment that tells them,
yes,
these are the gadgets, this is how they're going to be used, this is how you're going to be held accountable,
yes,
and these are the outputs that we expect from your interaction with the gadgets,
yes,
of course the gadgets become an integral part of the learning system.
Definitely.
So the regulation is, are we
yes,
creating an environment
yes,
that is going to produce a 21st century learner?
Okay.
And that's what we're doing at Midas.
All right. Wow. That is quite detailed. I never saw it from that perspective in regards to, I was told, majority of us were told, leave your phone at home. I never had that approach, which is quite interesting. I think schools that are watching, when students are coming over, let them come with their phones so that they use them also, I don't know, discipline and issue, but in the interest of time, we have to wrap this up, yeah? Just parting shots, yeah? Starting with you, Mrs. Palan, yeah? Parting shot. Where do you see the future of education in this country? Slightly less than a minute.
I think that we are heading in the right direction, and I look forward to the government investing highly in the human element, the personnel, the teachers, the training.
Yes.
And as Lazy Hill, we are committed to produce, as we say, the 21st century learner. Not gone as far as Professor Vainana, but we're a mid-level school that still engages in a very traditional but learner-centered approach.
Definitely. Thank you very much, Mr. Onyango. The future of education in the country?
It's very bright. Very bright if all the stakeholders can be able to work together and be able to share in our vision as an institution. Makini believe in producing a child that is very confident.
Yes.
One who is ready to work and one who can be able to give amazing academic progress. And we talk about progress, it means being able to understand that all children are not the same intellectually
Yes.
and in ability.
All right.
And therefore, being able to move in this journey together. And therefore, for the viewers, you've got us. It's your choice. And Makini is there for you.
It's all about choice.
Yeah.
Mr. Peter Masharia, closing up the future of education.
I think we need to embrace so much competence-based curriculum.
Yes.
We are actually on the right track because we need to nurture the talents that our students have, our children have. They are actually our future. But most importantly, we must embrace value-based education.
Definitely.
Because whatever the competence without values, we are lost as a country.
Definitely.
Thank you very much.
Hopefully, the students at St. Mary's will be able to be coming with their phones and laptops to school
Could be in future.
in future. Midas, you're quite ahead, you know. Yes, sir, please.
Yes, the future of education is Midas. In terms of 21st century learning and 21st century skills, I told you,
Yes.
every private school must give a reason why they occupy the space that they occupy.
Yes.
We are here to transform and to modernize the way the next generation learns.
Yes.
And like I have said, Midas is not for every parent, is not for every child. It is for the discerning parent and for the modern child.
Okay.
If you are looking for 21st century skills, and not just 21st century
Okay.
skills, if you are looking to have a career profile, because when you're coming out of high school these days, you only have a certificate.
Yes.
From Midas, you have a career profile. If you're interested in media, if you're interested in film, in
Yes.
TV, in radio, in music production, in DJing, in animation, in video,
Yes.
in video gaming, then Midas is your place. Midas is the future.
Midas is the future. And speaking of the future, as you have heard from the private schools stakeholders, they're saying that, you know, it's about focusing on the student. For the longest time, we have taught students en masse. We have seen them as a class. Yeah. It's time to change that mentality. Focus on the individual student, because each and every single person is unique. The way I conduct this panel, most probably if you're doing it, you would have done it differently, because we are different. Are we able to leverage on the differences that we have to make sure that we are having holistic human beings who are living in Kenya? And hopefully this will have ripple effects in our economy, in our workspaces, in our relationships, because it starts in that environment, creating the necessary environment. And on that particular note, remember, this is the private schools fair ongoing right here at Garden City. That has been our panel discussion. Thank you very much for watching. I'm Nokip Kimboy. Over to you, Mr. Producer.